Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Mariah Monique, the founder and the CEO of the Sponsorship Catalyst. If you're new to my channel, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell because we talk all things event sponsorships for nonprofit organizations. And in today's video, I'm going to bring to you a recent conversation that I had with a previous sponsee that I think you all can learn so much value from. There's so many lessons in this conversation that I had that I wanted to make sure that I can share with you all so you can prevent from making these same mistakes that are very, very costly should you be in the lane of securing sponsors for your events and your organization. So again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I want to know who you are. I want to know what kind of challenges you're having. I want to know your questions. I want to know if you're actually resonating with the content because it's going to help me continue to make amazing content for you to understand how to navigate the sponsorship space. So let's get into it. So the first question that I wanted to, or the first thing that I wanted to get into was the conversation that I had with someone who has an amazing organization in the Los Angeles area. And I mean, they're doing such incredible work, major impact. I mean, beyond what I've seen, particularly for a relatively new organization. When I say relatively new, I mean 5 years or less. I think they might be a five years at this point. So relatively new and have made some major waves in the LA area, not just in their impact, but also the partnerships that they've developed over time and the demand that has been placed on their organization because of the work that they're doing in the community. And they just do things in excellence. For an organization, I remember supporting this organization, and I just was always impressed with the way they ran their organization, the way they built partnerships, the way they presented the information. It was always on brand with their color scheme. It was always going to look really nice. They were sending fulfillment reports, which most nonprofits do not do after they have their event. And if you're wondering what a fulfillment report is and if you're doing it, I'm going to link a video above where I talk about what is a fulfillment report and what you should be putting in yours after you have an event for your sponsors. And so this organization has made amazing impact in the community. And when the LA fires happened, we saw their impact amplify, but also saw how their partnerships were coming in and probably at this point doubled from where they had before, whether they were in-kind or monetary sponsors and corporations, big brands, really contributing to the work and the impact that they were making in the community to support fire survivors of the LA area. And so I was having this conversation with the guy who runs it, him and his wife. I was having a conversation with him. He was asking for some advice. And so because they have developed a relationship with me, I can hop on a call and say, hey, what do you need? What's going on? What are you all looking to do? And really help validate, the idea, right? But also validate that they're on the right track. They can secure sponsors and really kind of help them get strategy and understand how to navigate it so that it works for them. Because they were actually doing major work, right? And so he calls and, we're talking and we're talking for like a long time, by the way. So there's many conversations within the conversation. But we get to this point where we're in the conversation and he's telling me all the amazing work they're doing, all the partners that are involved, and what they're planning to do. They're planning to host their first ever gala. And so, on board, I think that they would secure the funding to do it. And so we're really talking about the options, talking about like essentially profit margins, talking about what does it look like to be able to choose one venue versus the other and bringing in sponsors to be at those events. And what does that look like to make sure that you are not just hosting an event because you feel like it's the right thing to do, but really hosting an event because you know that it's going to continue to bring in the fundraising dollars that you need. I've had several conversations with nonprofit leaders, not this one, but nonprofit leaders who have told me, oh, we had to get out a loan to pay for the venue in order for us to host our gala event. And anytime I hear that, I hear red flag. I hear that there's not enough money to support the event. So one of the things that I was talking to him about during this call is to make sure that you have a contingency budget in order to pay for that event, because sponsorship dollars may not, and oftentimes do not, come ahead of time. So if you're banking on, if you secure a sponsor in order to just make that move and take that leap of faith that you feel like is appropriate for where your organization is, then you're going to want to make sure that you have some budget for that upfront cost when you're doing that, when you're actually executing that event. One of the things that I like to tell organizations, particularly when they're wanting to host large events, and not just large events, but events that will cost them a lot of money, which typically are gala events. I mean, you could spend 75,000 plus 100,000. I even know organizations that have spent about $250,000. And while they're ran and put together events, sometimes they don't always bring in the profit that's needed in order for you to sustain the work. So my caution for folks, and my caution for him, was make sure that, number one, you have contingency budget. Don't be dependent on the sponsors. I do believe the sponsors are going to come for him. However, make sure you have contingency budget, because when they come, it's not a matter of if they're going to come, it's when they come, you are, that money's going to come a little later, right? The second thing that is really kind of baked into this conversation as it relates to making sure that he had a contingency budget was also making sure that the timing to host this event is right for you all right now, right? Meaning you don't have to take out money for it. You've got the right players in line to be able to draw the right type of crowd to that fundraising event, which they do. And so, the probability for them is great. Now, if you don't have the people that will come into that event to raise money, because that is the point, you're not just hosting dinners or luncheons or brunches in order to just have that. You want to raise money. And sometimes, and I have been in events where people are hosting these things and they don't raise a dime. And it's really sad, where they've had to stop the mic and say, "What are y'all doing here?" They were not raising any money. I was a sponsor at this event. So that was my conversation with him, to make sure you don't just break even, that you actually do make it in the green, because some organizations don't even break even. So realistic conversation, right? So then we're talking some more, and then he begins to say, we've what we do is an easy sell. We're now doing this type of relief, and we're doing this type of work, and what we do is an easy sell. And I said, hold up, wait a minute. Just because it's an easy sell, because it's a good cause, doesn't mean sponsors are going to care about it long term. Now, during the LA fires, as you can imagine, any high catastrophic event that happens, people swarm from all over. They don't even have to live in a city to support it, right? You have the St. Louis tornadoes. People were supporting that from afar. And that's home originally for me. So I was supporting it as much as I could. And so when you think about catastrophic moments, people flock to support those things. And so when you are thriving as a nonprofit because of these moments that allow you to really get in there and be the hands and the feet, right, of governments that aren't maybe always equipped to handle disasters or handle people, you want to make sure that you understand that some brands and some organizations are just there for the moment, and they are there for the good cause. However, good causes do not keep sponsors on board, right? So, and I know I've been teaching this for the last year or so, where you have to have more of a reason of why someone should sponsor you besides that it's a good cause, right? What else is there, right? How can their brand merge into your brand in order to do the good cause? But what is it going to look like? Because at the end of the day, if you've been here for any amount of time, you know that I always say sponsorships is not a donation. It is a marketing tool. So brands that come on board, they want an ROI, right? And whatever that looks like, it may look very different for many brands. Now, some people might really care about the brand awareness, especially if they're like a newer brand. But if a brand has been here for 50 plus years, people know who they are, right? They possibly do. Some brands are here, we don't know who they are, but there are brands that have been here for years. They're not worried about brand awareness or brand exposure, right? So really thinking about the fact that brands are leveraging sponsorship opportunities to market to a body of people that could potentially become consumers, or if they already are consumers, they want to build in that brand loyalty with that brand that's sponsoring. So it has to be more than a good cause. So I had to pause him there, and it sobered him during the conversation. There was a silence, right, in that conversation that, really brought some realization, right, of how you get brands to look beyond the good cause to really bake them in to where it's truly a win-win, because they see how it's going to work out for themselves as well. And not to say that some brands, you know, the win-win isn't, you know, the fact that it's a good cause, because some brands it is. But that's not most brands. They may enter that way, but they will not maintain that way. And I want you to make sure that you have sustainable sponsorship income that is recurrent income year after year after year, so that you can continue to do the work that you're doing out there in the communities that you serve, right? Now, if this is good to you, again, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you also hit the notification bell, because I send out these videos weekly, and I want to make sure that you don't miss receiving these sponsorship nuggets that will be helpful for your organization to move forward and to be able to expand the reach and impact that you all have, because you have the right partners on board to help you do it. Right? And during this time, right, you know, where federal funding is uncertain, things in the nonprofit space are just uncertain, this is the prime time to be building relationships and diversifying your income, so that you can make sure that if anything happens, you've got some partner, whether it's a grantor, whether it's a sponsor, corporate giving, whether it's an individual donor or a major gift, whatever it is, you got it all working for your fundraising plan. The other thing that came up in this conversation as we're talking, and I'm just trying to helping him kind of plan out what the event could potentially produce in terms of money and in terms of just the impact, right, for the event. And so I asked him, I said, well, what's your sponsorship revenue goal? Like, do you all do an annual strategic fundraising plan where you kind of figure out, like, these are the programs, these are the events, you know, and then these are the income streams that we have working that's going to pour into these programs, events, in order to help them run, right? You got to have the money to help them run. And so he was like, no, we don't have that. And I was shocked, because they're so great at everything that they do. So I really was shocked when he said no. However, I said, okay, well, this is something that you all should be doing. Again, you don't have to be perfect at this thing, but once you know, you're accountable to execute. You're accountable to make the tweaks that you need in order to ensure that your organization's lifespan can have some longevity. So he said, we don't have a fundraising plan. I said, well, do you know what that is? And he said, no, I don't know what that is. And I started to explain, you know, your fundraising plan needs multiple streams of income, not just grants. And you need to be able to look at, you know, if you're looking at a piece of a whole pie, what pieces of that of your fundraising plan is allocated for grants or corporate giving or sponsorships or major gifts or individual donors. Like, what does the pie for your organization look like? And I said, hey, you should be doing those things so that you have an aim. You may not even hit the aim, but you have an aim, and you also know that if you stick to the aim and stick to the goals of what this fundraising plan looks like, then you know that you can reverse engineer, and you also can cover the programs that you're running on a day-to-day basis, right? So he said no to that. So that would be the second thing I would say organizations really do need. So when you're executing these events, what is the dollar amount that you're hoping to get? Anytime I do a sponsorship assessment or a sponsorship program assessment for an organization, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the past few years. I'm looking at where the goals of the current year that we're going into. I'm looking at the different events. How are you bringing in money into that one event? You've got sponsorships, you've got ticket sales, you've got silent auctions. So we started to talk about that as well. You've got live auction. You've kind of got that inspirational type of auctioneer that, you know, can also sell. So as I'm talking to him about this, I said, that's several different streams of income. You don't have to rely just on one source in order to get it done, but you need this source as well as the other sources to make a whole, right? And so this conversation continues, and we start to enter into another phase. And, you know, at this point, he's just kind of like, you know, it's just an easy sell. Like, you know, what we do is easy. Like, of course, they're gonna buy in. Yes, we do have sponsors, and yes, they continue beyond the fires, and they continue to show up. They continue to send volunteers. They continue to give in-kind donations. They continue to give money. And so one of the things I said, because I started to sense in this conversation that it was kind of like a give me more type of energy and attitude for nothing. And so I paused in my spirit. I paused and I said, okay. And then I asked him out loud, and I said, well, do you know what their marketing goals are? And the reason why I asked this question was because he started to talk to me about a partner that he has. He's been having it for a year, major brand. And he's like, I really want them to do more. I want them to do more. You know, I think they can do more. I know they can do more. And I started to ask, I said, well, do you know their marketing goals? Like, have you sat down to understand what they need, what their needs, wants, and desires are? And literally, you can hear a pin drop. That brief moment of silence. And then he said, no, we don't. So again, to my nonprofit friends, my nonprofit leaders, the people that are making things happen, the change agents in the world, the folks that become the hands and feet of cities, especially when things happen, I want to let you know that if you are asking for money and you have not stopped to ask your partner what are their needs, wants, and desires, you're in a one-way relationship. And it is very transactional, and you're winning for the moment, but you will not win long term. It is not sustainable. And so when you're in these relationships, when I asked him, you know, does he know their marketing goals? And he said no. Then I said, you know, well, do you have a plan in place for how you want that partnership to evolve after this year? Again, no. People are just moving, doing all the things. And I get it. Organizations are small. It might be 1 to 5 folks, and there's so much work that sometimes you don't have time to stop to do all the things. But just as much as you are pouring into your community, you got to be able to pour into those that are funding the work that you're doing that's helping you pour into your community. This is what I call the balancing act. And if you've, again, been around me for any amount of time or have taken a course that I've done, I talk about the balancing act. Almost like if you were to visualize a seesaw, right? Where, let's say this is the organization. This is the seesaw. These are your funders, and these are the people that you serve every day. Organizations focus so much on these people that they forget about these people. But it's time, if you want to do this well and you want it to not be transactional, that you also balance ACT, right? ACT stands for always consider them. You want to consider your sponsors, also your audience. And how are you being the connector and the bridge to make things happen? So again, I want you to ask yourself these same questions. Do you know your sponsors' marketing goals? Because this is not a donation. It is a marketing tool. Do you know their needs, their wants, their desires, what they're trying to accomplish? And are you thinking about what they need as it relates to what you can offer them? That makes it a win-win for both parties, and that creates sustainability so you have sponsors that will come back year and year again. So I want you to ask yourself that question. I want you to think about, do you have a fundraising plan that's helpful for you to understand the direction that you're going into and the type of money that you need to support and sustain the organization that you are running? And then I want you to also think through, are you hosting events because you're just hosting events, or does it make sense based off of where your organization is right now? Now, I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have not seen additional videos, be sure to check out these additional videos because they are packed with gems. They are packed with nuggets that if you just do one thing different to make that tweak, 1% difference, it will take you further along. I've seen it time and time again with students that I've served in my accelerator. I've seen it with people that I've worked with one-on-one, and they make these little tweaks that they don't even know about. They don't see because they don't understand. And literally, they start to secure these 5 and sometimes 6-figure sponsorship deals. So if you want to connect with me, my email is below. You can also join the Nonprofit Event Sponsorship Accelerator. In this course, I teach you the full sponsorship sales cycle specifically for nonprofits. It is the only course that is specifically for nonprofits. And so if you are ready to move forward, if you're ready to take your sponsorship strategy, your sponsorship journey to the next level, then make sure you click below and join us in the accelerator. Have an amazing day.